You've tried everything. You tidied the house, organized the kitchen, and thrown out junk you weren't using anymore. Yet when you finally sit down at the end of the day, you cannot fully relax in your own home. And nobody has ever told you why. There are 9 Japanese home principles that Americans ignore every day. And together, they are the reason your home is secretly stressing you out no matter how clean it looks. Homes in Japan are barely half the size of yours, built with less light, less storage, and less floor to spread into. And still their rooms feel calmer, warmer, and easier to be inside than houses in America. The first principle I'll show you is the reason your kitchen counter is draining you every time you walk past it. The second is the reason you walk through your own front door and feel stressed before you've even taken your coat off. And the last one is the reason your living room feels more like a hotel than a home. The first Japanese home principle Americans ignore is about the pile of things on your kitchen counter right now. In a Japanese home, that counter stays almost completely empty because everything on it actually gets used every day. And the moment something stops getting used, it's the first thing to go. In an American home, the same counter is holding a stack of mail from 3 weeks ago, an appliance you bought during lockdown and used twice, the vitamins you keep meaning to take upstairs, and a random cable that belongs to something nobody in the house even remembers owning anymore. Every one of those unused things is still something your eyes land on every time you walk past, and something you keep having to work around every time you actually want to use the counter. You stop noticing them, but you never stop reacting to them. The Japanese concept behind this is called danshari, which translates roughly to refuse, dispose, and separate. The whole idea is that anything in your home that no longer serves you is taking up space you're still paying for every month. And the real cost isn't measured in square feet, it's measured in how much of your attention it eats up every single day. Danshari has been part of Japanese thinking for generations, long before decluttering became a global trend. The solution is to keep only the 2 or 3 things on your counter you genuinely use nearly every day, and let everything else live inside a cabinet or leave the house completely. Before you go and buy another organizer to hide the pile, ask yourself whether the pile itself is actually the problem, because most of the time it is. Try clearing one thing off your counter tonight and see if you even notice it's gone by the end of the week. That was the clutter waiting for you when you walk into the kitchen, and the next principle is about the clutter waiting for you the second you walk into the whole house. The second Japanese home principle Americans ignore is about the pile of shoes at your front door. In a Japanese home, shoes come off the moment you walk in and get put away inside a closed cabinet called a gedabako, which sits inside a recessed tiled area by the door called the genkan. So the first thing you see when you come home is an empty floor and a clean slate. In an American home, shoes pile up on an open rack or straight on the floor beside it. The mail lands on the console. Coats end up piled on top of each other on the hooks. And the first thing you see when you walk in is a mess before you've even had the chance to take off your jacket. When you walk in already carrying everything from work and traffic and the kids, and the door greets you with another mess to deal with, you never actually get the moment you needed to just arrive home. The genkan has been standard in Japanese homes for centuries. The whole reason for it is that the entryway isn't really for storing shoes at all. It's where the outside world stops and your actual home begins. An open shoe rack organizes the pile without ever removing it from view, which is why it never really solves anything. The fix is a slim tilt-out shoe cabinet like the IKEA stall or Bissa, which holds shoes at an angle so the cabinet stays flat against the wall and doesn't stick out into the room. If you have a little more space, add a low bench for the 2 or 3 pairs you actually rotate through daily, and put a small tray or bowl near the door for your keys and everyday carry. Go measure the width of your entryway tonight before you buy anything, because these cabinets come in widths starting from about 12 inches up. That was the last thing you see before you leave the house, and the first thing you see when you come home. And the next principle is about what happens to the light in every room in between. The third Japanese home principle Americans ignore is about the daylight your home is secretly wasting every afternoon. In a Japanese home, natural light is treated as structural, and rooms are built around the sun with paper shoji screens and engawa verandas that pull daylight deep into the interior of the house. In an American home, the biggest window is blocked by a bulky TV unit. The curtains are narrower than the window frame, so they cover the glass even when they are open, and the brightest room in the whole house is a guest bedroom that stays empty 6 days a week. Living without enough natural light suppresses your mood, throws off your sleep and leaves you tired inside your own home during the hours you should feel most alive. Your body is reading the light in every room as a signal for what time it is and how alert to be, and when that signal is dim all day long, your nervous system gives up trying to keep you awake. The Japanese concept behind this is called hikari, which is the treatment of daylight as a material worth designing around the same way you would design around water in a garden. Christopher Alexander wrote about the value of getting light from more than one side of a room in his book A Pattern Language, and Japan had been building homes around that same idea for centuries before he ever put it on paper. The resolution is to move the biggest piece of furniture that is currently blocking your best window and see how much more light actually gets into the room. Extend your curtain rods about 12 inches past the frame so the fabric never covers the glass when the curtains are open. Put a mirror opposite a window to bounce the light deeper into the room, and if your brightest room is one you rarely use, seriously consider swapping it with the darkest room you sit in every day. Stand in the darkest room of your home tonight and count what is blocking the window, because that is your list to work through this weekend. Fixing the layout of your home is one half of it, and keeping it clean without spending your whole weekend doing it is the other. I have written a book that gathers every one of the money-saving methods the Japanese have used for centuries to keep their homes spotless and in order. It is at thejapanesemethod.com. Scan the QR code or click the link below to get your copy and start turning your home into somewhere you can genuinely rest again today. Back to the principles, and this next one is hiding in plain sight on almost every surface in your home. The fourth Japanese home principle Americans ignore is about what every one of those surfaces is actually made of. In a Japanese home, materials are chosen because they age, breathe, and carry visible variation. So the floor is real wood with real grain, the curtains are linen with real texture, and the ceramics were made by hand and carry the marks of the person who made them. In an American home, the coffee table is MDF with a printed wood pattern. The console is laminate, the shelves are particle board with a plastic veneer, and every surface in the room shares the same flat factory perfect finish. Your eye craves variation, because for most of human history, the world you looked at was full of it. And when every surface in a room is smooth and identical, your brain reads the whole space as institutional. It carries the same visual language as a hospital waiting room, an airport gate, or a corporate lobby. And you cannot fully relax in a space that reads like somewhere you are waiting to be seen. The Japanese concept behind this is called wabi-sabi, which is the aesthetic of natural imperfection. It values the grain, the patina, the small human marks, and the way real materials get better as they age instead of falling apart on you. The way to go about this is to introduce one significant natural piece into the room and let it do the heavy lifting for you. A wool rug, a real timber console, a linen curtain, or a stone or ceramic surface will change a room far more than a small cushion in the same texture ever could. Then repeat that material somewhere else in the room, because a single natural piece surrounded by plastic and laminate looks lonely, but two or three carrying the same warmth read as intentional. Look at the biggest surface in your living room tonight, and if it is printed to look like something it is not, that is the first thing to swap. That was every flat surface in the room, and the next principle is about every hard corner in it. The fifth Japanese home principle Americans ignore is about the sharp corners on almost every piece of furniture you own. In a Japanese home, forms are often borrowed from nature, so you find the soft curve of a chabadai low table, the arch of a torii gate, the rounded stones of a tsukubai basin, and the softened edges of a futon frame. In an American home, the coffee table is a rectangle, the sofa is a rectangle, the media console is a rectangle, and every corner in the room meets the next one at a hard 90 degrees. Brain imaging research has shown that the amygdala activates more strongly when people look at sharp angled objects compared with curved versions of the same object. Your square coffee table is not actually threatening you, but a room made entirely of hard corners keeps your nervous system a little braced without you ever realizing that is what is happening. The Japanese concept behind this is called shizen, which means naturalness, and it recognizes that nature has almost no straight lines, and that traditional Japanese design honored that fact instead of fighting it. The fix is to swap one rectangular piece in your main room for something oval, round, or organic in shape, and pay attention to how much the whole room softens because of it. A curved lamp, a rounded vase, a bed frame with softened corners, or an oval coffee table can each do the work on their own. Keep some straight lines around them though, because a room full of nothing but arches and blobs quickly starts to feel childish, and the mix of the two is what actually makes the room feel calm. Walk around your living room tonight and count the 90-degree corners, and if there are more than 8 of them, one round object is enough to change how the whole room feels. That was the shape of every object in the room, and the next principle is about the color of every surface it sits on. The 6th Japanese home principle Americans ignore is about the palette on almost every wall of your home. In a Japanese home, color is restrained and warm, with muted earth tones, indigo blues, aged wood, soft greens pulled from the garden outside, and paper whites that carry the slight cream of the material they came from. In an American home, the walls are stark white, the floor is cool gray, the sofa is cool gray, the kitchen is white on white, and the whole home ends up reading like a real estate listing photo of a house nobody has actually moved into yet. An all cool gray and white palette registers in your body the same way an office or a doctor's waiting room does, and your nervous system reads it as somewhere you are waiting rather than somewhere you actually live. You end up in a home that photographs beautifully and feels a little cold to spend an evening in, and the reason you cannot fully unwind in there has nothing to do with your discipline. The Japanese concept behind this is called shibui, which is the aesthetic of restrained beauty. It carries warmth without ever raising its voice, and it stays present in a room without ever demanding your attention. The fix is to stop asking yourself what color you like and start asking yourself how you actually want to feel in the room. As a starting point, aim for an 80-20 split between warm and cool tones, letting one temperature dominate and using the smaller amount of the opposite for contrast. Pay real attention to the undertones in your neutrals, because a gray with a warm undertone reads completely different from a cool one. And the difference between the two is often what makes an otherwise beautiful room feel a little cold. Stand in your main room tonight and count how many genuinely warm tones you can see, and if it is fewer than 3, the room is asking for 1. That was the color living on every surface, and the next principle is about the light your home actually turns on the moment the sun goes down. The 7th Japanese home principle Americans ignore is about the light your home floods itself with every single evening. In a Japanese home, the lighting at night is layered, warm, and low, with lanterns, table lamps, and small sconces that throw soft amber pools around the room and leave the corners in gentle shadow. In an American home, one bright, cool overhead light stays on from sunset all the way to bedtime, and the whole ceiling is treated like a floodlight over an interrogation room. Bright, cool light after the sun goes down suppresses melatonin and keeps your brain in daytime mode when your body should be preparing itself for sleep. If you find yourself sitting under a harsh overhead light at 10 o'clock at night, wondering why you cannot wind down enough to actually fall asleep, your lighting is not helping you rest, it is actively fighting you. The Japanese concept behind this comes from an essay called In Praise of Shadows, written by Junichiro Tanizaki in 1933. The original Japanese title is Ine Rei-san. His point was that shadow gives a room warmth and depth, and that a flat overhead light strips both of those qualities away at the same time. The fix is to layer your lighting instead of relying on one bright source at the ceiling. A table lamp with a fabric shade throws a warm pool around it. A floor lamp lifts the light off the ground, and a wall sconce focuses light in a soft cone against a surface. Each fixture shapes its own mix of light and shadow, and a few well-placed sources together make a room feel completely different at night. Add dimmers wherever you can, and when you buy bulbs, look for anything under 3,000 Kelvin for the rooms where you actually want to relax, because that is the warm amber tone you find in every place that feels good to be in after dark. Turn off your overhead light tonight and light the room using only lamps for one evening, and notice how you feel by 10 o'clock. That was the light on every surface at night. And the next principle is about what every room in your home is actually supposed to be for. The 8th Japanese home principle Americans ignore is about the room where you already eat, work, help the kids with homework, pay the bills, and doom scroll before bed all at the same table. In a Japanese home, space is defined by purpose, and the futon rolls out at night for sleep and rolls away in the morning. The low table comes out for tea and is cleared away for study, and every zone gets to have one clear job at a time. In an American home, the dining table serves dinner, taxes, homework, work emails, and midnight scrolling all in the same 24 hours, and your brain never gets a clean signal for which mode it is supposed to be in. You have probably noticed that it is easier to focus in a coffee shop than at your own kitchen table. And the reason is that the coffee shop has one purpose the moment you walk into it, while your table has 12. When a single space has to be everything to everyone, your nervous system cannot settle into any one role, and you end up feeling both busy and unproductive at the same time. The Japanese concept behind this is called ma, which is the intentional use of space and pause, and the idea that a zone is defined as much by its emptiness as by what fills it. Even without walls, every area in your home should be sending a clear signal about what it is actually for. The fix is to create zones using rugs, pendants, and anchoring furniture even inside an open plan room. A pendant light above the dining table gives the meal its own space. A rug under the sofa turns the seating into a room within a room, and a good armchair with a floor lamp beside it turns a dead corner into a proper reading nook. These boundaries do not need to be walls. They just need to be clear enough for your brain to register the change from one zone into another. Pick the room that stresses you out the most tonight and try to name every zone in it out loud, because the ones you cannot name are the ones stealing your focus. That was every zone in your home, and the last principle is about who your home is actually supposed to belong to. The 9th Japanese home principle Americans ignore is about the shelves, walls, and surfaces in almost every room of your home. In a Japanese home, the objects on display are few and deeply personal, so you might find a single scroll hanging inside a small alcove called a tokonoma, a ceramic pot that has been in the family for generations, and a shelf of books that someone actually reads on a regular basis. In an American home, the shelves hold whatever generic decor was on sale at Hobby Lobby that season. The walls carry word art that means nothing to the person who bought it, and the books have all been moved onto a Kindle that no visitor ever sees. When you strip everything personal out of your home and replace it with filler, the house stops feeling like it actually belongs to you. You end up living inside something closer to a hotel room that you also happen to be paying a mortgage on, and there is no evidence of your own life visible in any of the rooms you spend your evenings in. The Japanese concept behind this is called eikaku, which is the deep emotional attachment to well-loved objects that get used, cared for, and displayed over time. Western researchers have their own version of the same idea called place attachment, and the studies show that a stronger emotional bond to the place you live in is directly connected to lower stress levels and better well-being. The fix is to bring the real stuff back out into the open. Print the photos you actually love and frame them properly, put your books back on a shelf where you can see them, and give your records, instruments, or collections a real spot rather than hiding them in a drawer somewhere. The difference between clutter and a collection is intention. So a pile of mugs on the counter is clutter, and the same mugs arranged on a shelf because you actually love them is display. Skip the art that just matches your sofa and buy the piece that actually makes you feel something when you look at it. Walk through your living room tonight and count the objects in there that would mean nothing to a stranger and everything to you. Because if the number is under 5, that is where your home has stopped feeling like yours. There is one last trap almost everyone falls into as soon as they start applying these principles. People pick up a new lamp, then a new rug, then a curved coffee table, then a set of storage bins to hide the pile, and within a month, the room has more stuff in it than it did to begin with, and it still stresses them out every single evening. The Japanese principle for avoiding it is called kanso, which means simplicity through restraint, and the idea is that every new thing you bring into the room should be replacing something else, not adding to what is already there. The home that finally stops stressing you out is the one where you stop adding to it. All 9 principles come down to the same 4 things. Clear the surfaces, let in the light, soften the shapes, and fill the space with things that actually belong to you. Walk into any room in your house right now and ask yourself 3 questions. Can I see a surface that isn't covered in something? Can I see out of the window without moving anything aside? Can I sit here without another mess pulling at my attention? Any question you answer no to is the room stressing you out, and now you know exactly what to change. Thanks a lot for watching, and I hope you took something positive away from this video. Check out the video appearing on your screen right now. I think you will really like it, and I will see you in the next one.